The news keeps getting better as more and more restrictions are relaxed, allowing more businesses to reopen and more people to get back to work. And data out today suggests the jobs market is already improving. Certainly the evidence is growing that real estate is going well, despite everything. The weekend auction results continue to be better than many expected, especially in Sydney, which is a week or two ahead of Melbourne in terms of returning to normal auctions, and it's getting better results. Sydney's preliminary clearance rate at the weekend was considerably better than Melbourne's. It was 76%, which is good in any times, but particularly in times like these. And in Melbourne, which is having its first weekend back with live auctions, had a preliminary clearance rate of 53%, which isn't too bad either. There are now reports that agents are upping price guides and reversing gloomy forecasts amid what's being described as extraordinary demand for quality listings in Sydney's east. And realestate.com.au economist Nerida Knisby suggests that price drops may be avoided in those premium suburbs. She says it's premium Sydney that's doing the best at the moment. There's been a flight to quality. If you've got a job, you can get access to very cheap loans at the moment. She says people who can afford to buy in the east are less affected by job losses at the moment. And she also says, I think the better suburbs in every capital city will probably stay steady. Not return to really strong growth anytime soon, but we could avoid price drops in those better parts of Sydney. And realestate.com.au also reports that since the weekly low over a month ago, buyer search activity on the website has increased by 46% nationally, and that is now flowing through to actual buyer inquiry. Inquiry is now up 24% compared to the same time last year. Now, while the connection between buyer inquiry and transaction is not an exact one, it does show greater intent to purchase than the searches figures alone. There are many factors driving this uptick, including a relatively low number of active COVID-19 cases, a stable banking system, high levels of government stimulus, and importantly, a gradual opening of the economy. And speaking of a stable banking system, repayments on 1 in 14 mortgages have been deferred for up to 6 months to assist households get through the worst of the COVID-19 impact. New figures from the Australian Banking Association shows that repayments on 429,000 mortgages have been deferred during the crisis. That represents around 7% of total mortgages where a deferral is happening. Now, given my tendency to see the glass half full rather than half empty, that tells me that 93% of Australians with mortgages have not needed to ask for a mortgage holiday. Banking Association CEO Anna Bligh also says that some of those who were granted deferrals originally are now back on track with their incomes and finances and no longer need the deferral that they asked for. She says that banks have hired 1,500 new staff while deploying over 2,200 employees to frontline areas like call centres to meet the demand for support over the last few months. And National Australia Bank says it will hire 400 new staff as it starts assessing the status of 80,000 mortgage holders who have put payments on hold due to COVID-19. The bank says the new employees will be part of a plan to add 1,000 people, including current staff, to customer support roles as it begins calling on those customers to gain a deeper understanding of their situations. Now, one of the observations I've made a number of times in these broadcasts is that regional Australia is, generally speaking, less impacted by the virus crisis. And I've referred to a number of locations in the regions where, for example, rental demand has been growing and rents actually rising, such as Central Queensland, where the resources sector is creating jobs, and that's translating in demand for rentals in regional cities like Mackay, Rockhampton and Gladstone. I've had many discussions with valuers, buyers agents and other property professionals in regional areas in recent weeks where they report markets that are still ticking over in a steady fashion and there's no evidence of prices falling. So here are some more instances of solid regional markets that have come through in our research in the last few days. Property values in the Mildura region in Victoria remain relatively steady, with the agricultural sector appearing mostly insulated from the economic downturn, and that's according to the latest rural report from valuation firm Heron Todd White. Its report says the fundamentals for food production remain sound, and we expect that sales will eventually resume and the impact on values will be less than for other property sectors. In central Queensland, the Whitsundays has become another area reporting an uplift in inquiries for rentals because of their links to the resources sector. The principal of Ray White Whitsunday, Mark Beale, says his real estate agency has seen a significant increase in the number of families which are employed in the mining industry taking up residence in the Whitsundays area. He says many of these people don't want to actually live in the mining community. They want greater facilities, more options for their family, but they also want to be away from the bigger communities like Mackay, so they turn to areas like the Whitsundays. It's the flow-on effects of people working in the mining community which is so important to this region right now. And speaking of the central Queensland resources sector, it's been revealed that more Brisbane plane passengers flew from Brisbane to the mining town of Moranbah than to Melbourne in the last month. In figures that are a sign of the times, Brisbane Airport says there were more than 11,000 two-way passengers on Moranbah services in April compared to just 8,500 passengers on Melbourne services. Now, Moranbah sits at the heart of the Bowen Basin mining province where business is brisk and jobs are expanding at the moment. Elsewhere in regional Australia, there are reports from Albury-Wodonga at the border between New South Wales and Victoria that rental demand is at an all-time high, with one real estate agency claiming that in the past 65 days it has processed 390 rental applications. Now, this doesn't overly surprise me because I know that regional city well, and I know that its major economic sectors, the ones that provide the most jobs, are all sectors like hospitals and medical services, as well as supermarkets and food stores that are more likely to be hiring than firing in the current situation. And it's a market that also offers affordability and great rental returns. In Townsville, in North Queensland, there are reports of big numbers of people at open homes over the weekend as the restrictions have been eased. Keys and Company Property Director Damien Keys says at the weekend at least 130 people visited 23 open homes with 65 separate groups of people attending. And he says it's definitely exceeded the expectations. We had a limited number of people at any one time because of the rules, and we had to manage them. I had 8 people standing in the front yard waiting to get in at one point, but most were very understanding of the restrictions and the rules. And Townsville is a strong regional city with the kind of diverse economy that can withstand the worst of the virus crisis and grow in the near future. Now, looking at some of the major developments happening around Australia, and there's some very big ones being announced or advanced in the last few days. Sydney is set to get its tallest ever residential tower after a $1 billion plan by Mirvac and Coombs Property to develop a George Street site received council approval. The 270-metre tower, which will rise up 80 stories, will have 507 apartments. Development will start soon on the project, which will offer luxury service suites, a rooftop restaurant and bar, while the podium will comprise a cinema, retail, conferencing facilities, a childcare centre, and also a meeting facility for the City of Sydney Council. Elsewhere in Sydney, there's a plan to demolish the existing Ryde Civic Centre and replace it with a new $110 million facility. Plans for the new Heart of Ryde development will also feature a retail precinct, public plaza, art gallery, performance hall, seating up to 700 people, and a basement car park. Turning to Melbourne, the state government is about to undertake the biggest spend on social housing since the GFC as part of a $500 million package to build 168 new units and upgrade 23,000 more to bolster the economy. The state government will pump $58 million into new social housing units in Reservoir, Balaclava, Dandenong, Hampton Park, but the biggest portion of the package will go towards maintenance and upgrade works that can be delivered quickly, such as painting and roofing. And it's part of a $2.7 billion state government building blitz, which it says will create thousands of jobs. The Premier, Daniel Andrews, says the money will be poured into road maintenance, train station and school upgrades, and that refurbishment to public housing. He says hundreds and hundreds of projects delivering thousands and thousands of jobs. That's exactly what we need right at this time. In Brisbane, a $450 million development that promises to be the 24/7 beating heart of the inner western suburbs will feature a town centre that will become the focal point of the local community, so they hope. A development application has been lodged with the Brisbane City Council to build Toowong Town Centre on the corner of High Street and Sherwood Road. The precinct's design is based on an open street theme and will have retail, commercial, residential, entertainment and leisure facilities, along with a range of services like childcare, gymnasium and medical centre on a 9,000 square metre site. Also in Brisbane, construction on the city's new 1,500-seat theatre is set to begin in the next couple of months. A new $150 million venue will be built at the Playhouse Green as a new extension of the Queensland Performing Arts Centre at South Bank. And on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, a $1 billion Kelly Slater wave pool project has been planned, adding to over $20 billion worth of infrastructure projects already underway in that region. The World Surf League wants to build the surfing theme park at Coolum in partnership with leading Queensland development companies Consolidated Properties and Hutchinson Builders. The partners have reaffirmed their commitment to the project to help the COVID-19 recovery effort, saying work could start this year and create 10,000 jobs, including the associated tourism, infrastructure, public green space and residential components of the project. So once again, plenty happening that's positive. Stay tuned. I'll have another good news bulletin for you tomorrow. Bye for now.